Hey everybody, so let's get into the market data and talk about what's happening. Why is this so important? We talk about it all the time, but I just want to reiterate to you guys, you are professional real estate people, and I don't want you to feel uncomfortable when you're talking to people about what's happening in the market. I don't want you to just have a good or a bad answer when somebody says what's going on in the market. You need to know what's going on nationally to some extent, and I want to help you with that. And then of course I need you to understand how to talk about what's happening locally, and we're going to get into that as well. You're going to build instant credibility, being able to explain the market, and isn't that going to feel awesome? We don't want you feeling uncomfortable when somebody says, what's going on with the market? Sharpen those client conversations to identify trends, talk about what's happened and what's going to happen, and of course, spot opportunities faster. Of course, all of this is about strengthening trust and feeling good and making your clients feel good that you are navigating the ship, right? And you're like literally just setting yourself apart from everybody. One of the ways that I do it is I follow Logan Mohtashami, and if you're not following Housing Wire, you should definitely follow Housing Wire. Every week he puts out what's called the tracker. The tracker information just literally is giving you national data about the numbers that matter. I'm literally going onto the tracker, I'm taking a snapshot of it, and I'm throwing it up in ChatGPT, and I'm like, make this simple for me. Pending home sales remain below prior years, showing weaker buyer activity, fewer contracts signed. New listings tracking above 23 and 24, showing slightly stronger seller activity this year, but even with the pickup, listing levels remain well below pre-pandemic peaks. I do talk a lot about pandemic or pre-pandemic because when people are asking us about whether we're in a buyer market or a seller market, I want to tell them that when we get back to the conditions we had before the pandemic, we're going to be in what we call the new normal. And I like to continue to say things like that so it registers with people, the new normal. So depending on like the market you're in or the price point you're talking about, are you in a buyer's market or a seller's market? So follow Logan Mohtashami, set a Google alert. That's what we do, and that's what's helpful. The other numbers we're following on the tracker are mortgage purchase applications and percentage of properties with price reductions. All right. Here is why this matters, and here is what everybody needs to remember. Mortgage purchase applications. What does somebody do when they own a house and they're thinking about selling? Right. Well, most likely they're going to be buying something else. So a lot of those people will actually go and get a mortgage and put in for a purchase application. We know, here's the number to remember, 65 to 70% of everybody who owns a home is also a buyer. So the biggest market is the resale market, 65 to 70%. So if we're seeing a constant increase, which we've been seeing in 2025, purchase apps are running higher. It means that sellers are thinking about selling. So if we know that sellers are thinking about selling and we can get ahead of it and have these real estate conversations with them before they have an opportunity to tap somebody else, then we know something. We're spotting a trend, and purchase application data allows us to spot a trend. Now, percentage of properties with price reductions. That's another amazing number to track. If you can track price reductions in your local market, I highly suggest you do that. Our MLS doesn't make it easy to do that, but maybe yours does. Okay, so price is a percentage of properties with price reductions. Here's what you have to know: the standard is about a third of every house that goes on the market would typically see a price reduction, and we obviously have been trending way lower than that. And depending on where you're located, your market, of course, different parts of the country are happening very, very differently, right? But we do know that the amount of price reductions, even in markets like mine, which is northern New Jersey, have been rising steadily and are way higher in 2025 than they were in 2024. And this suggests a tug of war between buyer and seller. And that is something else I'm talking about, almost a stalemate with buyer and seller, where sellers are asking for a certain number and they're not getting it. There's also a tremendous amount of delistings happening, people going on the market and coming off, and that is happening nationally as well. We know that the Fed did cut the rates, and one of the things that I do focus on is this where were we back in the same time period last year. So this is just the Mortgage News Daily app. That's all this is. So when I talk to my clients, I'm sorry, I just moved my face around everywhere. So when I talk to people, when I do market videos, I am just showing them what happened. Here's what happened. If you look back at September of 2024, you could see that mortgage rates spiked and we stayed hovering in like mid sixes of the sevens pretty much for like the entirety of our selling season. And this is a problem because this is what has created like this just affordability issue everywhere. We have an affordability issue and we have a gridlock between for sellers who have 3% rates with interest rates that are being offered at 65 to 70% of everybody selling is also a buyer. If you're trying to shake loose inventory and there's 3.5 to a 4% gap between where somebody can buy and where that is continuously causing problems for people who don't have, for people like me in the Northeast market. I do, with my team, I talk to them a lot about shrinking budgets and how higher mortgage rates have affected buying power. And of course, we know that wages have not kept up with the increases in home prices. Even for areas where they're giving some of that appreciation back, it's not a bubble. It hasn't popped. They picked up 50, 60, 70% of appreciation since 2019. And yes, they might be giving some of it back, but what you all are dealing with is a complete stalemate between buyer and seller. And we know that the buyer knows first, the agent knows second, and the sellers know third. This is another great chart I love. This is states that are above 2019 inventory levels, and I go over this with my team as well. Where in the country we have active inventory for sale compared, the shift compared to where we were in 2019. So if somebody's in your area and they're thinking about buying, then it's awesome. Pull out this chart and say, okay, I know that you're concerned about selling and giving up your rate, but let's look at some states where we can probably get you a better deal. Want to get a great deal in sell in a seller's market, buy in a buyer's market? Let's have a meeting and discuss other states where you can really have much more opportunity as a buyer and really win as a buyer and show them this. Also, if they're still stuck on the price that they think their house is worth because they're upset that they're not getting the number that their neighbor got a year ago, show them what's going on. Again, manage their expectations from the beginning and tell them, hey, you guys, like when we're at those 2019 levels, that market starts to neutralize. You are not sitting in the same position as maybe, somebody was a year ago, but that doesn't mean you're still not winning. And that's the big thing, right? Even when you're explaining to a seller that they're maybe not going to get the number they thought they're going to get because pricing has sort of flattened out because of the inventory levels, it still doesn't mean you're not winning, right? You're still showing them how far above they were in 2019, 20, 21, 22, even 23, and parts of 24. Don't forget that. And by the way, this is Lance Lambert. He's another guy I follow. So you can see here, Lance Lambert. The source is the Resi Club. I subscribe to his premium, and I love his charts. They're like, he totally nerds out, but I like them single state. So it makes you look really, really smart. So now this is just what we do for for what I do for my videos. I basically show people sort of my version of the tracker, and I give people an idea of what are the numbers that I'm following for them. And I do it on a county basis, and then I also do it sort of in a localized town or city basis. So I'm showing them like Bergen County year to date. average days on the market. So if my days on the market are going up, I know that clearly the buyers have a little bit more power. The buyers are maybe pushing back a little bit. And I want to manage expectations of the sellers who are thinking that their house is going to sell in a week, just like somebody else's house sold for a year ago. So here, for Bergen County, for where we are, we have flat sales. We're pretty much slightly under contracts, units slightly under contracts, and our new listings are pretty much flat. And that is, whether that's the same in your market or not, I think it's always really important to show people where we are. So the other numbers I follow and I provide to my database and I have in conversations are going to be the year-to-date pricing and the sales to list price. I also talk about homes coming off the market, delistings, and I talk about price reductions. When I can tell them that there are more price reductions, there are more homes coming off the market, and houses are sitting on the market longer, and then I also show them that the houses are selling very, very close to, if not higher than their ask price, I am prepping my seller to understand that they can't just put the house on the market for any price they want. They have to be very strategic, because if they price their house too high, they're not going to get the bids, because this is where the numbers are trading. Think like a buyer to win like a seller. And if a buyer thinks that the houses are going to be selling at or close or above their ask price, then no, you're not going to get the number you want just because that's the way that your friend got it a year ago. You have to be very, very strategic and follow the data, and the data will help guide you as far as your pricing and to get your house a market aligned, like a market alignment as in a price reduction. So for our towns, our counties, we're seeing here average list price is still way up, average sold price is still way up, but the median sold price is also way up. But of course, the list and the sold are still way higher than the median sold. What does this mean? Okay. Super easy. If you're working with buyers and they're still waiting to buy because they think that the market's going to come back down, in our county, we're like, what are you guys waiting for, right? You could always refi for little or no money, marry the house, date the mortgage rate, but clearly the cost of waiting is insane. And so that's what we're using these numbers and these charts for. We're also showing them here that when that house gets to right price, it is going to fly. So we want to educate our buyers. If they're sitting on the sidelines waiting, then they're only just doing what every other buyer is doing. So put in a bid, right? You never know. Put in a bid. Be ahead of it. Don't be like every other buyer and wait for that price reduction. You just never know. Maybe a seller is really ready, willing, and able to take a lower number, but you as a buyer are conditioned to only do it when that price point, when the listing price hits close enough to where you think that house should be trading. And I say, don't wait. Jump in now. Okay, so best weeks to buy. Again, just more data to share with you guys. If you're able to post and talk about stuff like this online, it gives you great context. I don't need to read all this to you, but you can kind of take a snapshot of this. When you're talking about the data, rates are lower, but will they stay? Of course, the Fed cut rates. Most of that was pretty much baked in, and I think it's really important that you feel very comfortable talking to your clients about the relationship between mortgage rates and your housing market. For us, we definitely, and I think nationally, we definitely see that the rates directly affect the market activity. And I think it's important to explain that to people. So yes, seasonality matters, but where the rates are tend to matter equally, if not more at this point, because people are following the rates. And so here's just a little bit of some bullets of how we can explain it to our marketplace. Again, at a high level, we want to tell them that if the rates stay at in the lower part of the sixes, we're hopefully going to, continue to see inventory come to market because more people will be willing to sell, because when they want to buy, there's not going to be such a difference between where they are in their rates and where they have to buy. And if more inventory comes to market, then we very well might continue to shift from seller market to neutral market to buyer market. So you might be able to motivate or create some sense of urgency with the potential seller to not only get that house on the market, get it prepped, start working with you, but also to get to buy somewhere. So that is what we are trying to do. Motivate and create some sense of urgency, but obviously just being their trusted educator and advisor and keeping them up to date on what's happening. Don't forget, you guys, most people's most expensive asset is their house, and yet they check Zillow maybe once or twice a year, and they check their stock portfolio, I don't know, every few days. So I think you can offer a tremendous amount of value by staying in front of your clients and offering them guidance on their most expensive asset, regardless of whether they want to buy or sell. This way they will always be thinking about you when and if that time comes. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.